No, thank you. Sleepy. Come back in an hour. Need sleepy. Please go away. Let me sleep for the love of God!
It's now time for the Billy C. Morning Show, part of the Billy C. Boxing Network. Interact with the show at BillyCBoxing.com.
And we're coming to you live from the sweltering studios in Lake George, New York. I'm Bill Caliger, and it's time for the Billy C. Morning Show. Good morning, everybody. I guess it could be worse, but man, the last couple of days here in the Northeast, damn, it's been hot and muggy and disgusting. Times like this, I wish I was in Alaska. I don't know. Where's it cool? Oregon. Yeah, I heard Oregon's cool. Today's show is being brought to you in part by Sal's Neighborhood Pizzeria, an Italian restaurant located in St. Simons Island, Georgia. Check out the website. See why I brag about Sal's food. www.salsneighborhoodpizzeria.com. Or give my man a call, 912-268-2328. 912-268-2328. Just visit the website. It's got all the numbers. www.salsneighborhoodpizzeria.com. Today's show is also being brought to us in part by my book, Tom Molyneux, From Bondage to the Baddest Man on the Planet. It's available right now where all good books are sold, and you can get a copy right now as you're listening to the show by going to barnesandnoble.com or amazon.com. If you want a signed copy, hey, just visit our website, billycboxing.com, and click on the book club section. Well, it's Friday, and it's Fan-Driven Friday. We got a whole bunch of emails. Now, I have a couple left over from the other day, so I'm going to try to get to the emails, and then we're going to open up the phone lines. But today's topic, so to speak, we've been talking a lot about, Andre Ward, his boring fight against Alexander Brand. Many people felt that, he should have dispatched of Brand pretty quickly. Then he followed that snooze fest with, a diva, Andre Ward, the diva, trying to play games with a contract he already had in place for Kovalev. There's still more on that one. So and then all of a sudden we find out some other information about the Triple G Kell Brook fight, which is really the fight that everybody's looking forward to. At least I am. Let me rephrase it. I know I'm looking forward to that fight big time. And they had the weigh-in the other day for the 30 days out, and Triple G weighed 165 pounds. That's only 5 pounds over the middleweight limit. Now, Kell Brook, on the other hand, he weighed 176 pounds. That was the max that he could have weighed at the 30-day point, according to the WBC. So, a little FYI, Kell Brook is definitely taking advantage of not having to kill himself to make the 147-pound weight limit. And that brings us up to this. My question today, my topic today, is Triple G is exciting. We all know that. And he's a badass because people don't want to get in the ring with him. We all know that. But can Triple G save boxing? Can Triple G's style and Triple G's excitement level and the fight that's coming up September 10th from London, can Triple G snag or set the hook for some of these boxing fans to basically save it? I think he can. Joining me right now is the man himself, Sal Rocky Senecola. Can Triple G save this sport, Sal?
Can Triple G? I'll tell you what. Triple G is everything you just said. He's an exciting fighter. He's got a style that can't be denied. And he is going to be one of the catalysts, one of the instruments that could attract fans and keep the fans baited with the hook to watch boxing again and again. I think there are several fighters out there. And like I said, maybe last week or the other day, they're both the same thing to me. But anyway,
yeah,
we might have to do a recap of last year and the year before, just all the exciting fights that we do like, that we do agree on, that we do think, we are looking at some of the good fighters of today that will help us promote and will help us keep the interest to the young fans and everybody else that are going to be the fighters that we look for tomorrow. And that's going to be it. So I definitely think Triple G and his style and his attitude towards the fight game is old school, and I love it. And I think it should be shared with everyone, as we're going to see with this promotion of this fight against Kell Brook. It's going to be an exciting fight. And look at this, Kell Brook. The guy's a light heavyweight right now.
Hey, you're not kidding. And the more I'm thinking of it, the more I'm saying to myself, with Kell Brook's style. And that's the other thing. When people try to, discredit Triple G, the first thing they say is, "Oh, well, why doesn't he move up and fight this one? Move up, move up, move up." And I always say, he's not a big guy. He's not a big middleweight. Everybody said that Miguel Cotto, he's a small middleweight when he won the title, and Saul Canelo Alvarez, who had beaten Cotto, who likes to fight at 155 because he can rehydrate, up to 175. I mean, this is a guy that's way bigger than Triple G, and Triple G is not a big guy. I think he showed it 30 days out, weighing only 6 pounds over 5 pounds over the middleweight limit, which he should have no problem making 30 days from now. And Kell Brook, on the other hand, has done a really good job at putting on the weight. I know Al Bernstein made a comment after the weigh-in. He says, "Geez, is he going to be able to make weight?" Like you said, he's right now at 176. He's a light heavy.
He would be considered in the old days a heavyweight. He's over 175.
Exactly.
I'm talking about the old days.
Exactly. As a matter of fact, you're right. He's a cruiserweight, Sal.
He's a freaking cruiserweight.
176. He's a cruiserweight. So that's interesting. Another thing, the reason why I personally think that Triple G, if he had the right dance partners, and maybe Kell Brook will be that guy, but if some of these other fighters would have the balls to step in the ring and fight Triple G, I definitely think that he could change the course of boxing right now. And I'll give you an example. Yesterday, I met a couple of guys from Brooklyn. Yeah, from Brooklyn. And we were talking about boxing. And I was shocked to hear the knowledge base that these guys had from a historical perspective. They started giving me trivia questions and stuff. But the one guy turns around and he says, "Oh, that Triple G." Oh, and they start talking about Triple G. And he rattled off when the next fight was, who he was fighting. And, I got to be honest, Sal, that's the first time in a long time that I've had just somebody basic, just not even what I would call a boxing fan that I know, like a diehard boxing fan, just some regular sports fan, because we were talking Mets and Yankees and Jets and Giants and everything else, and he rattles off not only Triple G, but when he's fighting again and who he's fighting against. To me, that was a pleasure, man. That was a good sign for me, Sal.
Oh, come on, that's a great sign, and you know what? And that's what we have to see. Billy, MMA is big down here in the South, but ever since we've been trying to use the boxing as a forefront to promote the fight game, I'm getting a lot more people asking about fights and talking about boxing, talking about this. They're coming into the restaurant and they're excited. They're talking about boxing. So we've introduced that form of fighting and boxing, the Marcus of Queensberry rule style, to the Southeast right here. And we got a lot of people in the community that listen to the show and that also are excited about some of the fights we may bring and preview with them.
Well, I tell you,
boxing's not dead, pal.
No, I don't think it's dead. But no. My point that I was trying to make, and I think some of the naysayers misinterpreted. My point is that what keeps, let me rephrase it. What makes a lifelong boxing fan? In other sports, kind of you're born into it. If football, you become a fan. Your father or whatever. Hey, you're a Jets fan. I mean, no, that's the way it is in my house. And you become that fan, and basically it is for life. But boxing is different. What needs to make a boxing fan a fan for life is something to set the hook to get them into boxing. Excitement is the key. And with some of these fights that are safety first, and again, no disrespect to the fighters because it's their lives and everything, but at the end of the day, they're boring fights. They're non-memorable. You don't even remember the fights. You fall asleep. You can't even stay awake for the 12 rounds. Those kinds of fights are not going to create a lifelong boxing fan. And those fighters that fight those styles are not either. But guys like Triple G and, even Terrence Crawford, for an example, and other fighters that engage, they can. And I think there's actually a lot of pressure on fighters like Triple G to right this ship, get some lifelong fans here, and keep it going. And I'm looking forward to the Kell Brook fight. I think Kell Brook is going to give Triple G more trouble than I initially thought.
Well, I concur with you on that 100%. Look at what Kell Brook has done. He is jumping into a new weight class. He's challenging one of the current baddest men on the planet in his weight class. And I don't think he would do that haphazardly without knowing that this guy, hey, guess what? I'm going to show the world right now what I could do, what Kell Brook is all about. So I think he knows, and he's got a set of confidence and goulions that he knows something he can do, and he visualizes himself coming out the victor in this fight. Whether he does or not, we're going to see. But that's what's going to make it great.
No doubt.
You have a guy stepping up into a new weight class, into the ring with one of the most respected or feared, however you want to say it, fighters in the contemporary days here. And it's going to be a great fight. I think it's going to be everything we want to see it. We're going to see a contrast to some styles. We're going to see the ring general himself, how he's going to cut off the ring. And we're going to see Kell Brook go in and out, move and jab, and try to confuse and offset Triple G. So I think it's going to be a great style, a great fight, and I can't wait to see it in September 10th.
Yep, and I'll tell you, I'm going to make a bold prediction right now. Kell Brook will not return to the welterweight division after this fight. I think that he is going to do well enough, whether he wins, loses, or ends up with a draw. I think he's going to do well enough, and he feels it appears that he's very comfortable at this weight. And I don't foresee him going back to 147. As a matter of fact, I don't think he's going to be able to. But anyway.
I agree. He's 30 pounds over that limit right now. And, he's been working out. He is in shape. And, you walk around when you carry around weight. When I fought lightweight, I used to go up like Roberto Duran all the time as lightweight. I'd go up to 165, 160. And, but I'd tear it off. It was weight that was just from eating. You're feast or famine in a fight game. And, you just do it. So 25, 30 pounds in a couple of weeks, we weren't that hard. It wasn't that difficult to get down and do. But, when you're walking around now and you're comfortable and you're not living the extreme roller coasters of up and down, I think you're right. He's not going to go back to 147.
No.
Never.
All right, we got some emails. Let's read some emails real quick. I also want to touch on some news, which I'll get to in a minute, which it kind of flew under my radar. But anyway, like I said, we got a bunch of emails. Some of these are from the other day. We'll kick it off with, of course, Jesse. I always like to do Jesse's first because he's so kind to interact on a regular basis. He says, Billy C., what's your thoughts on you guys versus Jamal Jones? Do you think it's a good one? I would have rather have seen Bryant Perella. But some issues happened there. But I think all credit goes to Jamal James for stepping in such short notice. I do think it's going to be a competitive fight. He says, what's your thoughts on Troyansky versus O'Barra? This is a crossroad fight with the winner moving on to big names. I haven't had a chance to really give that one much thought in terms of afterwards. I do think it's going to be a competitive fight. And I think your assessment of labeling it a crossroads fight is a good one. He says, I do like the sweet science approach, but agree with you about being in a position to counter. A lot of, now right off the bat, again, this is somebody, Jesse, I respect you and everything else, but the sweet science is not just hit and get out of the way. You got to be ready to land another shot. Anybody that has drank the Floyd Mayweather bullshit Kool-Aid about that's what the sweet science is, please go back in history and look. It is not. It is his style that made him successful, which is great. But it is not the sweet science. The sweet science is hit and not get hit, but be in position to hit again, not a way where you can't land a punch or your opponent can't land a punch. The key to the sweet science is being in a position and landing a punch to your opponent when they can't land a punch to you, not when you can't even land a punch to an opponent. I mean, right, Sal?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, you look at some of the classic fights, and that's just it. You could see guys stand toe-to-toe and blocking, bobbing, weaving defensively, and, they're putting on a great display right there.
Right.
And that could be considered some of the sweet science. Stepping to the side, slipping a punch, moving in, moving out, and but you remaining in the position to throw punches and counter.
He goes on to say a lot of fighters like Floyd don't want to get into a fight like he did with Castillo or Corrales or Frampton, or a fight like Frampton versus Leo. If most fighters fought like these fights were, then I think their careers would end short. What's your thoughts? Not necessarily, because if they were trained and taught correctly, their careers would continue to go. It's part of the smokescreen that Mayweather and his team successfully, shaded over everybody. And the truth is, look at guys like Jake LaMotta. Jake LaMotta fought inside. He had a long, lustrous career, and he's still alive and kicking sharp as attack today in his mid-90s. So come on, it's all a matter of how you avoid the punches. But you got to be in position to land another. It ain't rocket science, boys and girls. He says, does it mean anything that Brook outweighed Triple G on a 30-day mandate date? Does it mean anything? I don't think it means anything in terms of the fight, but I do think it means something, like Sal and I were just discussing, about Kell Brook and where Kell Brook is going to go after this fight, where he is right now. This wasn't a guy that just has been eating coffee cakes to put on the weight. I mean, this guy is in top physical. He looks very strong. If you haven't seen any of the photos, this guy looks like he's an animal. To tell you the truth, if Kell Brook, I think Kell Brook is going to become a big name in the middleweight division. Mark my words. Mark my words. And don't even be
that a light heavyweight.
I tell you, either that or a heavy. Maybe he's going to go to heavyweight. But I don't know. I think this fight is going to be a lot tougher than people think. I really do. Jesse says a humble Mikey Garcia says, I don't think I could sell pay-per-view Crawford fight possibly in a year. He says, what's your thoughts on this interview? It just goes to show you how great of a guy Mikey Garcia is, being a humble fighter and, making a statement like that he doesn't think he's a pay-per-view level fighter right now, but he would like to fight Terrence Crawford within a year. That's a fight I personally would love to see. As I move on, I got another email. We got a bunch here, Sal. This one here is from my man Mitch, and he says, okay, Billy C., while your viewers ask good oh no, here it goes. He says, while your viewers ask good questions, I'm the only one that has the guts to ask questions that take guts. So let me ask one, and then I'm going to add a bonus one. Question 1. Did the creators of the Batman song... Oh, this is funny. Did the creators of the Batman song serve you with some postal mail recently? You stopped ending your shows with the song Cease and Desist. That is so funny that my man Mitch says that. And I will tell you this. It wasn't the creators of the Batman song, but yes, I did receive warnings that I can't play that anymore. And it's true. It's my partnership with the truth of the matter is my partnership with YouTube. YouTube is very strict about playing other people's content. And although that particular clip was taken off the internet, off a public area of the internet where you could use it, YouTube does not like to take any chances, so basically I stopped doing it. So you're right, you got me there, Mitch. But anyway, he says, secondly, let me ask you this. I don't want another party to serve you with any postal mail, so be careful how you answer this. First, my theory, I always ask myself, who the hell buys $4,000 worth of vitamins at one time? Many years ago, Andre Ward, check this out. He says, many years ago, Andre Ward wrote a check for $4,000. He says it may have been $3,000, I forget to be exact, to a man named Victor Conti, okay, for that much, $4,000 worth of vitamins. He says, who the hell buys $4,000 worth of vitamins at one time? He says, no. You pay $39.99 for supplements. You pay $8.99 for vitamin C, and maybe $7 for zinc, and $13 for your multivitamins, etc., etc. Then when you run low, you re-up on what you need. But $4,000 at one time, and from Mr. Balco, he says, He says, follow this. When Ward fought Edwin La Bamba Rodriguez, Rodriguez got into a drug talk with Ward, and Ward said he was clean. So Rodriguez says, let's do VADA testing. Ward started to cry. He told La Bamba he should have negotiated that when negotiations took place. Rodriguez said he'd even pay for Ward's testing. Ward said no. Then Andre appealed to his fans and said he'd do the testing for his next fight after Rodriguez. He promised them. He never did. So the name out loud, say the name out loud. Look at that. Mitch is killing me. He says, say the name out loud 3 times, Billy C. That's VADA, VADA, VADA. He says the same VADA that's busting people left and right in boxing, not giving out therapeutic exemptions, not giving out free passes to fighters who get caught using IVs the night before a fight. We learned that Duva loves VADA testing, and Golovkin, as well as Kovalev, have used it. She's going to push for it, and Kovalev is already on board. So why is a fight now in jeopardy? Because Ward didn't show up for the press conference today? I say, this is Mitch, that it's VADA. I also say if Ward finds a way to weasel out of VADA testing, look at him to all of a sudden have power on fight night. Look for him to not look as flat as he did against Brand. I smell something funky here. Kathy Duva's pissed. I wish she could have had a 10-minute segment one day. Kathy Duva is welcome to come on the show anytime. Interesting theory here by my man Mitch.
Yeah.
What do you think, Sal?
Is.
What do you
Very
think?
Interesting.
What do you think?
Yeah.
You think he's got a point? You think he's got a point?
I think he's got a little point. I mean, I'm just tired of hearing all these people that profess they say one thing and don't follow up and do. Lead by example. If you're going to tell your fans you're going to do a drug test or so, then do it. You know what? So you don't have anything to come back and haunt you and discuss later.
Well, the bottom line is I can't stand people that say they want clean boxing, then they don't do it. Obviously, the IV he's referring to is Floyd. Floyd, a lot of people assume that he's been cheating, but nobody tests him because he pays them off. And now Ward, looking like he tries to throw with punching power, throws his punches with power, but nothing happens. His opponents weeble, but they don't fall down. But
there you go.
They weeble and wobble, but they don't fall down, Sal. Good point. Thanks for the email, Mitch. Here's one. This one's from my man Jim. And Jim says, hey, Billy C., I got a trivia question for you. It's a who am I question. The question is, during my career, I beat Sugar Ray Robinson, but lost to Vito Antuofermo. Who am I? He says, I'll give you a hint, and despite my accomplishments, I am not in the Hall of Fame. Well, that was an extremely good trivia question from Jim, and I'll give you the answer right now. It's Denny Moyer. Moyer beat Sugar Ray Robinson at Madison Square Garden on February 17th, way back in 1962, via a 10-round decision in a middleweight fight. Check this out. He lost to Vito Antuofermo on September 9th in 1974. Guess how? Via a 10-round decision in a middleweight fight at Madison Square Garden. Denny Moyer, just to give you guys a little info on him, he ended his career, which ran for over 18 years, from 1957 through 1975, with a record of 98 wins, 25 coming by knockout. He did have 38 losses, in which he was only stopped 7 times. He had 4 draws. He happened to have been the first WBA and WBC World Light Middleweight Champion. Should he be in the Hall of Fame, Jim? I say yes, because if you look at his resume, He fought a lot of guys. He was a tough Irish fighter. Denny Moyer. Good little trivia question for us, Sal. What do you think?
I think that's great, and I'll tell you what. Those are some of the legends that were carrying boxing through the decades ahead. Yeah, this guy's a Hall of Famer, and I think we can put him on the voting ballot to get him inducted.
The funny thing is, a lot of younger fans today just look at the records and they see that many double-digit losses and they say, "Oh, he can't be good," and that's a fallacy. But here's one. This was from Alex T. It says, "This is for Sal." Whoa. He says, "Hey Billy C, I know Sal fought Bryant Paddon and dropped a close majority decision. Since Sal has been on the show, I've always wanted to ask Sal what he remembers about that fight. Bryant Paddon was must-see TV for Alex back in the 80s and early 90s. From the time Sal and Paddon fought in 87, Paddon fought a ridiculously high level of competition until he retired in 92. Simply put, there are no more Bryant Paddons in boxing. These are the guys who are just below the championship level and would fight anybody and everybody. And even though they never reached the top on any given night, they could turn a great fighter's lights out. Paddon was on Tuesday Night Fight Series very often, and his one-punch knockout of Calvin Grove is imprinted in my mind forever. It seems like it was just yesterday for me, but the sport was so different back in the 80s from how it was today. The lightweight and super lightweight divisions are dominated by a couple of guys you've heard of, named Chavez and Whitaker. So you had all these tough quality fighters trying to get title shots. So you know what they did. They fought each other to move up in the rankings. Can you imagine that? Does that even happen anymore? So you had your Bryant Paddons, your Tony Martins, Terrence Ali's, Frankie Mitchell's, Rodney Moore's, all beating the crap out of each other, trying to get their title shots, only to move on to have to face someone like Chavez and get destroyed in the process. But bringing it back to Sal, I've watched the YouTube clips. Sal had great balance, knew how to cut off the ring, and he looked like a pressure fighter from what I see. Reminds me a little bit of, you're going to love this one, Boom Boom Mancini. It would have been great to see Sal mix it up with any of the guys I listed above, but I'd love to hear specifically about his fight with Bryant Paddon. Oh yeah, one more thing. Of two of Sal's fights I watched, the announcer said he used to be a hairdresser. Is that true? I'm going to answer that. Yes, he was. He owned a salon. Is there really a place down south I can go get a haircut and a great slice of pizza? This is from Alex T. Great email. So how do you respond to that? What's your best recollections of the Bryant Paddon fight that you fought?
I'll tell you, and it's just to all the above. I opened up a hair salon called the Uppercut Hair Salon, where all hairstyles are knockout. And it was great. We had a great time. I am a licensed hairdresser, barber, beautician, if all you all remember those words. And what's so funny? I just got from the state of New Jersey my license renewal. I am still considered a licensed barber and hairdresser. So you never know. We might have pizza and a cut on the go.
There you go. And that's what Alex T wants to do. He wants to come down, get a haircut, have a slice of pizza, maybe even watch some fights. But
absolutely.
What do you remember about remember about fighting Paddon?
I'll tell you, Alex, great question. I'd love to expand on this right now. When I was in between managers, between Lenny Shaw, between Richie Giacchetti, who was co-partner with Sylvester Stallone, we had the Tiger Eye Limited, which we fought a lot out of the sands. Russell Peltz was a catalyst for a lot of that. And I was in between. I should have probably gone with Al Certo and the King organization there as well, but who I was in talks with. But I did go to Lenny Shaw, who was the manager who was able to get a fighter virtually unknown from the South. I'm not going to go upon how he did this, but he accomplished to get Charlie White Lightning Brown into the ring for a title fight, I think against not Robin Blake, I think it was Harry Arroyo, where Charlie Brown got beat. He was just a product of building up a record and doing this. But when I was with Lenny Shaw, I was undefeated and had a couple good fights. And he came to me and said, "Sal, I got you a fight. We're going to fight Bryant Paddon." And I said, "Well, that sounds great. I don't know him. I'd like to study him. I think he was from Philadelphia." And Bryant Paddon had a record that was a decent winning record. He had a couple losses. But he also had a 5-fight ring to him where he would spoil undefeated fighters. And so Lenny said, this will be a good fight for you. He said, well, I'm undefeated, and I'd like to put an end to his winning streak against undefeated fighters. Yeah. But what is it going to really do for me? And this was in a very sensitive time because I was supposed to fight Kenny Bazemore for the, I think it was the USBA lightweight championship. And all of a sudden, we were very high on that. And Bob Lee had me with the fight. Everything was going to go on. Bob Lee was the commissioner or so, the IBF or what at the time. And I was supposed to fight Kenny Bazemore. And for some strange reason, all of a sudden, about a week or so, he broke a hand or said he had a bad hand. And then next thing I knew, they slipped in Harold Knight to fight Kenny Bazemore. And Harold Knight upset Kenny Bazemore. So that was my window of opportunity done. So I guess what they're doing was trying to showcase both Kenny Bazemore and myself, because I fought the co-feature at the Sands Casino against Bryant Paddon that night, and Kenny Bazemore was also on that card. Kenny Bazemore lost, and I fought against Paddon, Paddon, and I thought I won the fight. I wanted a 10-round fight. They would only give me 8 because I was a 10-round fighter. So I said, well, I don't like that. I'm a 10-round fighter, and I closed it big in the last couple of rounds, and Mo was in shape. So anyway, there were some things that I didn't like going into the fight. Brian Paddon was a good fighter, a solid fighter, and he obviously was a spoiler. He hit me low throughout the fight, and I think they actually took 1 point away from him. And I did get inside on him. I did hit him with good shots. Billy, I have all those still photography. I'll tell you who took Tom Casino, I think, who was the photographer of the year. He took all those stills. He said, Sal, I can't believe I got all these pictures. I can't believe you lost that fight. And I did lose that fight on a split decision, I think. And it was devastating at that time. It was my first defeat after 18 wins, and I was really upset by it. I thought I pulled it out and won. It was a close fight, and he had a style that was hard for me to penetrate on sometimes, and that's what I remember about the fight. And I wanted a rematch right away. But someone said to me, and this is the truth, that he already had a signed contract why he had to win. I'm not saying it was there and I didn't knock him out. But he had already a signed contract to fight Livingston Bramble in either a non-title fight or something going on that it was going to be predicated on him coming out the victor of the fight, which he did. He won the split decision to give me my first defeat, and I was very upset about that and wanted a rematch right away.
Yeah, that's something they don't do today. Good stuff.
Yeah.
I got a couple more emails.
Thank you for that question. I had to relive that whole thing, and now I'm all pissed. I'm looking for a fight. Look out.
This one is from Owen Southern. He says, hey, Billy C., I'm from Newcastle, England. I started listening to your show a few months ago, and now I can't stop tuning in. He said, I just want to ask you a few questions and share a few of my opinions. First of all, who do you think Anthony Joshua should fight next? I personally think he should, this is Owen, he says, I personally think he should fight David Haye for a big domestic fight. I also think David Haye would put him to sleep within 3 rounds. He's far more experienced and he has a lot more power than Anthony Joshua. He feels that Anthony Joshua is the most overrated heavyweight in the heavyweight division today. First of all, I totally disagree. I think David Haye is one of the most overrated fighters in the history of boxing. I can't stand him, Owen. No disrespect to you. I can't stand fighters that say they're going to do this and they're going to do that and they're going to do this, and then they run like a scared little bitch and then make excuses, and that's what David Haye did against Klitschko. He followed him around for 3 years. We all thought we were going to be treated to a big fight. David Haye is nothing more than a big loudmouth. Again, no disrespect. But I think Anthony Joshua beats him, and I think Anthony Joshua puts him to sleep. As far as your thoughts about Anthony Joshua being overrated, I totally disagree. I think he's the real deal. He is the future of the heavyweight division, and I think that this kid, despite being a champion and despite me feeling that champions should fight anyone, I do believe that Anthony Joshua is still developing, and the best is yet to come. Don't underestimate your countryman. Anthony Joshua is the man, in my opinion. He says also, what's your thoughts on the fight outcome with Brook and Golovkin? I think Kell Brook will pull it off because he's one of those fighters who always seems to get through no matter what the challenge is. Also because everyone is writing him off, and Triple G is walking around as if he's just happy with the fame similar to Klitschko versus Fury. British boxing's at its best at the moment, and everyone is supporting Brook when he pulls it off. The whole world will know that the Brits have the best boxers in the world. If you listen to my show longer than a few months, you'd hear that I have always said for years that the British boxers, English fighters, basically carry the sport on their backs because of their willingness to fight the big fights early on, whether it be domestic in England or on a world stage. And I love the Brits for that. As far as Triple G against Brook, we've been talking about that today. We're very, at least, and I say we because I know, Sal, I know you agree with me on this, but I think that we are very impressed with Kell Brook, especially the weight gain, how he looks. It's all going to come down to how he performs on September 10th. We all think that he's going to try to employ an outboxing Triple G game plan and picking a shot similar to the way he fought Sean Porter. And I think the pressure is going to fall on Triple G to be able to prove to people what I say, that he's the best ring general. So, yeah, I love the fight. I think it's the biggest fight in boxing, despite us seeing some great fights this year so far. I think in terms of, repercussions for the sport, I think that Triple G Kell Brook is probably the biggest fight of 2016. So, great email, and thanks for listening, Owen. I love getting these.
Very good.
I love getting these emails from people from outside the states. And speaking of which, I got one here from Canada. My man Brett, who's back listening, he says, "Great show Wednesday. I must admit, I too am losing a lot of respect for Andre Ward since he decided to skip the press conference on Tuesday. His excuse of traveling, etc., being too close to the fight, makes him really look bad. After all, the fight's 3 months away." He says, "The blast that you and Alex did on Marvin Hart was really good. I knew nothing about him except that he was a champion who beat Burns and who had fought Jack Johnson. Who Burns beat. I'm sorry. Yeah, that's what he wrote, too. I was just going to correct you. I would love it if Alex and you would do a blast on John L. Sullivan sometime. That would be great, and I would learn things I didn't know about him." We actually did one on John L. Sullivan. So, Brett, if you want to take a look under the blast from the past segment on the web page, you can replay that. And if it's not there, check out the heavyweight spotlight. I know it's in one of those two areas, and the show is cut out, so it's just the spotlight on Sullivan. So you could check that out. He says, "I downloaded a show from July 21st and listened to it yesterday since you didn't do a show, and it's good to hear that you and Rocky, I guess that means you, support Donald Trump. I pray you win so you don't have Comrade Clinton." It's hard to keep supporting him. He's been saying some crazy stuff, Sal, and it's not looking good for the Donald in this upcoming election. I sadly admit it's not looking good. Thanks for the email, Brett, but I too hope he gets in, but it's not looking good, Sal.
Well, it's like a fighter getting caught earlier. You got to have a fight plan. And if it doesn't seem to be working, you got to have plan B. And like we say, everybody has a fight plan until they get hit. He's getting hit. Let's see what his, Donald Trump, and cut me off whenever we have to here, because we got to be careful with politics.
Well, you know what? Let me just let's do this
Go.
Before we get into Trump.
Yeah.
Because I got another email to read and a couple
Let's
of
go.
news, and I want to open up the phone lines. We're running out of
Yes.
time already, So this one's from Music Man. He says, "Hey Billy C and Sal, Lemieux versus Stevens is official. I believe that it will be potentially the fight of the year. Both Stevens and Lemieux showed they've overcome their recent losses by coming back stronger, displaying improvements in the ring. What saddens me is that in this fight, it will not receive the attention it deserves simply because of the losses on their record. How can we get back to a time where the O no longer matters?" Great point. And first and foremost, it shouldn't matter. And that's the smokescreen you hear me talk about, not only by guys like Floyd Mayweather and his cronies, but also the networks and the promoters. They've followed suit. And as much as I blame Floyd Mayweather for that, the networks have to be blamed as well, Sal, because they're not willing to put fighters on that have losses of fear. They have the fear that people won't tune in. And I agree with Music Man that's BS. And Lemieux against Stevens is going to be an action-packed fight, potential fight of the year, of course. But I think the biggest point that he made was that, these guys are the Stevens and Lemieux fight, both have come back after losses showing improvements. And I think that's a critical key in his email, which I agree with Music Man on 100%. Your quick thoughts?
Well, I think so as well. I mean, this is the kind of era we're in, and these fighters coming up have to really try to make an impression right off the bat. And when you have a 00 or digit, or you have losses, I mean, for instance, Dave Lemieux, I was very high on Dave Lemieux when he fought Triple G, and we had that fight at my pizzeria. It was a great night. And yeah, he took a devastating shot and he was out. But coming back and the whole thing, these are the things that make fighters great, and they should be paid attention to, and they should definitely see that they could rise to the occasion and erase that last fight legacy. Because I used to say a fighter's only as good as his last fight. So let's give these guys some credit when they try to pick themselves up off the canvas and get back in the ring. That says a lot right there.
Yeah, well, what says even more is when they correct their mistakes and
bingo.
Yeah. The NFL had some preseason games yesterday. Normally, I don't give two craps about preseason because they mean nothing. The only thing that happens is that you get a chance to see guys that may never play in the NFL, or at least on the team that they start out with. But I'll give you guys some scores. Yesterday's preseason finals: Falcons topped the Redskins 23-17. The Eagles beat the Bucks 17-9. The Patriots 34-22 over the Saints. The Ravens beat the Panthers 22-19. The Broncos slapped around the Bears 22-0. And the Jets beat the Jaguars 17-13. Now tonight there's some more games. The Lions are playing at the Steelers, the Dolphins at the Giants, the Vikings at the Bengals, the Browns at the Pack, and the Raiders at the Cardinals. So that's what's going on there. One last thing. Let's open up the phone lines real quick. 845-228-8710. What's your thoughts on anything boxing, Triple G, whatever? But also this, Sal. Tonight is the last ESPN Friday night fight for the foreseeable future. There are no more ESPN Friday night fights scheduled for this year, and nothing so far scheduled for next year. What do you think about that? Do you think that ESPN is going to... Well, they signed a deal with PBC, and their thing is up, So, I mean, what do you think? I'm a little disgusted that the Friday night fights may not happen anymore. What do you think, real quick? I just disconnected Sal. Let me get. Oh no, wait. Let me see if I got Sal back. Are you back, Sal?
I'm back. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you now. But
all right.
I'm sorry about that. What's your thoughts on the potential? I just hung up on Dax. Dax was trying to call in, so Dax, give us a shout back. I hit the wrong button. But what's your
story of my life? Hitting the wrong buttons.
I know. I push the wrong buttons all the time. But anyway, what's your thoughts on the possibility of ESPN not having boxing on it anymore?
Well, I think that would be a mistake. I mean, we're trying to create the interest again. We have to do it. You have to have a habit. You have to have a routine. If people are going to expect some good fights to show on a Thursday, Friday, or Saturday night, then we need to continue that. And you have to have the continuity there. And I hope ESPN is able to negotiate with the PBC and get a new contract in place. Because
I don't even want them to go with the PBC. I want them to go back to Friday night fights so we get it. Every Friday night. The PBC deal was just, again, greed on ESPN, finally getting somebody else to pay them for their production costs. But joining us right now is my man Dax. What's your thoughts on the ESPN closing its doors on boxing after tonight?
Well, it's a shame because it has been a staple of it's been a staple of the sport. A lot of people have been talking about that recently on social media, that some are blaming Al Heyman, which, I really don't blame. Everybody wants to blame Al for everything, it seems, even if, you get a stale loaf of bread from the bakery. But,
Well, that's definitely his fault. What are you talking about?
I don't think so. But we knew that, long before even Heyman. Actually, I don't think
I'm talking about the bread. I'm talking about the bread, Dax. When you
the
buy
bread,
yeah.
I don't know about the bread. But, when Wednesday night fights left because their budgeting, they didn't have the budget to do Wednesday night fights and then Friday night fights, and then they got rid of the Friday night fights and they brought the PVC in. So why ESPN is doing that, I don't know. I think it's going to hurt them, and hopefully maybe after some of these other seasons get over with, whether it's football or basketball, whatever the case may be, they bring it back. Once they start realizing that they're losing some money in terms of advertising and they're losing some viewership, and that it's going to return.
Well, wait, hold on. Let me just make something perfectly clear. ESPN was actually losing money on the Friday Night Fight series, okay? When they produced it, in order for them to do the production, the filming, the way they set it up, the whole nine, they were actually losing money. That's why they jumped on the PBC bandwagon, because Al Heyman comes in, obviously with everybody else's money, and pays the television networks, with the exception of Showtime and I guess Spike TV. He pays the other networks that he's on for that time. So ESPN said, whoa, this is great. We don't have to pay to the production costs. We get to produce it. We'll get revenue from that. And we still get to broadcast it on our network, so they get to keep the content. So that is why ESPN jumped on it. But what makes it worse is, do they use this now as a, hey, it's over, we don't want to continue to lose money? Or do they bring it in, like you're saying? ESPN is supposed to be 24/7 of nothing but sports. If they don't carry boxing on a regular basis, whether it's through somebody else footing a bill or their own, production costs, what does that say about the sport? I mean, isn't that more of a knock on the sport than it is on the network?
No, what that's telling me is that ESPN has always been known more or less, I guess you would say, the farm leagues. Even the best of fights on ESPN, outside a select few, were against guys who weren't exactly the world caliber level. There was always a joke, or it was always kind of an insult, I guess, a knock on a fighter when they would say, he's nothing but an ESPN fighter. He's a Friday night fighter. Or if an HBO card or a Showtime card, the main event was a stinker, people would say, that was nothing but Friday night fight worthy. So,
but those were
what
great.
That tells me is that the fights are getting better, especially with the PBC, and that's why some people are saying, well, it's Al Heyman's fault. Why is it Al Heyman's fault? Because he's giving out better fights for free than what PBC is, than what ESPN has for so many years. If the quality of their fights had went up, over the years, instead of just staying at that lower caliber level, then maybe it would stay around. But you know what? You can get the same quality fights on channels like SNY or MSG, and a lot of the Spanish networks, whether it's a Telemundo or a Univision or a beIN Sports, they're putting on better fights than ESPN is, and people are also getting that for free, and that's what's hurting ESPN. It's their fault, nobody else.
Yeah, but wait a minute. I think first of all, that level, those ESPN level fights, were exactly what they wanted it to be. And that's what we need. That's how you get to know. How many times have we talked? The Tuesday Night Fight series from years ago, that's how you got to know the fighters. That's how these fighters became known to fans, and fans got to watch them progress and get on the bigger networks, cable networks, etc. The PBC, up until recently, because they have no choice, was not giving us better fights. They were giving us lopsided. They were giving us bigger names, but they were putting them in against, lopsided opponents. Very lopsided fights, terrible, until recently, because their backs are against the wall. They're running out of bullets, So as a result, we are benefiting with the Sean Porter, Keith Thurman type fights, So I don't know, man. I like that consistent, mid-level fight on TV. That helps us become familiar and get to know these kids.
I do too, And I agree. And, as I stated, it's a shame because ESPN has, been a staple among, for boxing fans. It's something that you always look forward to. I used to look forward to the Wednesday night fights. So, hopefully it'll come back. That's all I can say. But I got some stuff here that we can wrap up and move on. Today's topic, the Triple G and Kell Brook fight. It's a little bit surprising that Kell Brook came in at 176, but a lot of people tend to forget that, Kell Brook has actually fought unofficially as a middleweight before. He's had 9 or 10 fights, as a junior middleweight. So, him weighing in at that much is a bit of a surprise, but not that much of a surprise. And there's been other fighters who have been able to get that high in weight and come back down. Ricky Hatton was one, and, come fight day, he chiseled and in shape. The only thing I was surprised about with Kell Brook was the fact that how in shape Kell Brook looked. There was no loose skin on Kell Brook. He looked like he'd be ready to step in the ring at 176 pounds.
Well, that's because but that's because he had a lot of extra. He's had a lot of time to prepare, but just one quick comment. Fighters that balloon up in between fights, you use Ricky Hatton as an example. He's a good one. Everybody's heard me many times be critical of Floyd Mayweather, but that's one thing that I admire about him, and we just come to realize that it's similar with Triple G, that they don't get out of shape, that they stay in shape, all year round. So when the fight gets announced and they know who their opponent is, they can focus their training camp on that fight, not weight loss. Ricky Hatton spent a lot of his training camps conditioning, getting down to weight versus a game plan for his opponent.
And it shortens your career when you have to lose that much weight. But the difference is that a lot of that weight was, water weight. Ricky Hatton used to call himself Ricky Fatten because he spent a lot of time in the pubs and so on. What really hurts a guy in terms of somebody like a Kell Brook is the fact that, to me, he looks like he added a lot of muscle onto him. Whether or not that was intentional or unintentional, that's the way he was preparing for this fight, I don't know. But we have seen bigger disasters in the past when guys put on too much muscle and then they have to kind of lose that muscle tone to get down into that weight, because it's a lot harder to lose that muscle in such a short period of time. But you spoke about Anthony Joshua a little while ago. Anthony Joshua put out a wanted ad on social media. He said, he wants serious challengers only. He wants no talkers and he wants no hype. And, of course, the only person to reply to him was David Price, who says, I fit that bill. We know what happened when we met as amateurs. I didn't know they met as amateurs, but, I would think more people would jump on that. And, that's kind of telling me, thinking about the email that this guy had sent over from the UK before with David Hay, that kind of tells me that, Anthony Joshua is going to be a guy, if he continues dominating, title belt or not, he's going to have a hard time getting opponents, just like a few other world champions.
Well, they're going to be, hesitant to get in the ring with him, I think. But I David Price I don't see that as a challenge for Joshua.
No, not at all. David Price just wants that big fight. But my point is, if that's all you have answering this call is David Price, you think more people be jumping on this when you got a guy out there who holds a version of the heavyweight title of the world going, you know what? I want to fight, or somebody is actually going to come in and fight. Don't bring me hype. Don't talk about you want the fight. I want the fight. And you know what? David Hay is a guy who did a lot of talking. He wanted an Anthony Joshua fight, but David Hay, for some reason, has problems signing his name.
Well, that's the whole thing about safety first, right, Sal? I mean, these guys all they care about is the easy route. Nobody wants a tough route anymore, and it's sickening to me.
Sal spoke before about being a 10-round fighter, which is true. A lot of guys are like that. The first fight where I met you at was Jermaine Taylor, Carl Froch, and I remember going to the post-fight press conference, and they were talking about how Carl Froch is, a 10 to 12-round fighter. And, early in that fight, Jermaine Taylor really took it to Carl Froch. And, in the Olympics, the professionals being in there, that's been a hot topic. And, I'm not Roon Rong and Bam, they're out of the games. I think Roon Rong was knocked out after he was doing well early. It proves that, ability matters. Some guys can adapt to any style, others can't. Once you have a habit, it's hard to break, whether it's a good habit or it's a bad habit. When you're a professional, you have no feeling out rounds, and these guys in the amateurs, they are ones, that are used to that style. Whether or not they can adjust when they turn pros, that's a different story. But, that right there, just shows, really, it's really not, when you get a world-class elite amateur who has, hundreds of fights, and they're used to fighting all over the world, whether it's in World Games or in Olympic-type games, once you're at that level, you're just as good as the pros. The only difference is glove size and maybe head care.
No, the difference is the style of the boxing. Like you said, the transition from the amateurs to the pros is tough. But how hard can it be, or how hard must it be to go from the amateurs to the pros and then back to the amateurs? That's why I was pro letting the pros compete in the tournament, in the Olympics, because I think that proof is right here. Ruing Rung and the Dom coming out short. Everybody was, it's not fair. They're going to walk through these kids, and it's not true. I think that it definitely is harder than it seems.
And if they had fought as pros, let's just say, under the professional rules, more than likely Endam and Ruing Rung would have won, because you're allowed to do different things. Lomachenko, when he came in and he had lost to Orlando Salido. Reason being because Lomachenko was not used or had never had to experience having to deal with a lot of things you're allowed to get away with in the pros, and in the amateurs there's no feeling out process.
No, I agree. The only thing I'll say is Ruing Rung, he got knocked out. He was stopped.
Yeah, that was unexpected. You'll see a lot of knockouts in the amateurs, especially when somebody at that level.
And Ruing Rung, you could argue, was one of the best at junior fly and flyweight. I mean, he's definitely tops. So
a lot of guys. PED talk. That's another thing. I have a feeling that after the Kell Brook and Triple G fight, no matter who wins, that there's going to be talk of whether or not Kell Brook tests clean or he tests dirty. There's going to be talk about him and performance-enhancing drugs. There's been a couple guys going around on social media complaining about every one of their opponents being on performance-enhancing drugs. And there's one guy who actually broke it down, every single opponent that he lost to, saying that they were on PEDs, and that's the only reason why they lost. This has come to a point where grown men, world champions, have become crybabies. You know what? You're going to lose some. You're going to win some. Of course, there are guys that may be out there on PEDs, but every guy that beats you cannot be on performance-enhancing drugs, and you can't use that excuse every single time. Winning and losing are both part of the sport. It happens. Even the best of guys win and the best of guys lose. Even the all-time greats, pound for pound, Sugar Ray Robinson, he's lost many fights even before he started to decline. And the big O, as always, is something that still today people talk about, and that is still the big selling point. And Sal mentioned something earlier about you're only as good as your last fight. Something. Bernard Hopkins and Homicide Hank, they lost their first pro fights, and we see how their career ended. So you know what? The last fight doesn't always mean, that doesn't always define your fight. And David Lemieux is another guy who's getting a lot of flack for that loss to Triple G, and I think David Lemieux is a lot better than given credit for. So speaking of credit, we have to give credit to Group GYM and Yvonne Michel and all his fighters up there. They've just agreed to have all the fighters under that banner participate in the WBC Clean Act. Adonis Stevenson, Lucien Bousse, Alvarez, Arthur Beterbiev, they're all going to be part of that. They're all going to be available anytime, 365 days a year for the test. If anybody who's registered in there does not start to conform by September 9th, they're going to be dropped from the ratings by the WBC, and they're not going to be eligible for fight under any WBC sanctioned bout.
So what? There's a million other sanctioning bodies, and who's paying for that testing? Certainly not the WBC.
Probably GYM is going to test
right.
it, but what?
So this
step
is
in the right direction.
But it's a great step, and I wish that there was a main power that could police that stuff. But this is my hang up with the WBC. They come out with all this stuff like it's them, like again, further putting a division in the sport, and they act like they're doing it, but they don't write any checks. Even when they raise money, that whole big smoke screen of a retired champions dinner and all of that, they raised all that money. They raise the money from other people. They don't write checks for anything. They deposit checks. That's all they do. I mean, let's be real. Stop.
They do help some people out.
Yeah, well,
they
help themselves. You know who they help out?
So.
They help out Suleiman. They help out everybody that's involved. I I get it, and I appreciate your optimism.
I disagree on certain things. I know of several fighters we can get into on another show that they've helped out afterwards when they've been down on their luck. They've helped out with with medical bills and stuff like that.
That they wrote a check for, I would definitely like to see it. Guaranteed
Absolutely.
it wasn't their check.
We'll speak about that later on another show. Marcos Maidana finally announced his retirement, and you know something? I'm proud of that. I'm proud to say, we have a fighter who walked away from the sport under his own terms. Marcos Maidana was always exciting. He always gave us a great show, and a lot of people still think he gave Floyd Mayweather an unofficial loss. We knew he was going to walk away from the sport. He kind of denied it. They made this official. Maidana, good for him. He's going to walk away with all his faculties. He's got some money. He's going to spend time with his wife and kids, and we need to see a lot more of that.
Yeah, Dax, we talked about that. I got other callers calling in. You got any other final thoughts?
No final thoughts on that today.
I want to ask you something real quick. Antonio Margarito against Ramon Alvarez. You think that Margarito's going to look better than his last fight, or what?
I think he's going to look good in that fight. I think because Billy Joe Saunders is playing games and rejecting every opponent that they're offering him for the undercard of the Canelo and Beefy Smith fight, that what's going to happen is Antonio Margarito is going to beat Alvarez, and then that's going to set up a fight for Antonio Margarito to face Canelo in the future. Watch and see.
Yeah, no, you were right when you said that in the chat room earlier in the week. I that's a great point, and I agree with you on that. And that just goes to show you once again how Canelo Alvarez has totally shifted gears and pulled a 180. Wanting to fight the best. Us Mexicans don't F around, all of this, and now he's clearly cherry picking some opponents.
He's going to pull a Klitschko. You know what? You beat my brother. Now I got to beat you. The difference is the Klitschko were just beating everybody because there was nobody else there to beat. Canelo has a lot of challenges out there that he's just sidestepping.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll see him on Dancing with the Stars in the future.
I think you're right.
Funny.
I think you're right. I think that's with all the sidestepping, he's already. I think Dax hit it right on the head. I think that he's going to be on Dancing with the Stars. I think that's a good one. I think that's perfect, man. A perfect analogy, Dax. You're the man, brother.
All right, we'll have to coin that phrase. Every time somebody ducks from now on, we'll just name it the Canelo two-step.
There we go, the Canelo two-step. 1, 2, exit stage left.
Good.
Dax,
all right,
great.
Everybody, enjoy the weekend.
Great job, brother. We'll talk
Dax.
to you later.
Take care.
That's Dax Khan. You can check out his column up on BillyCBoxing.com. He hit that one on the head, huh?
He sure did, right out of the park. I'll tell you.
That was good. But speaking of Antonio Margarito and Ramon Alvarez, they had their final press conference. Ramon Alvarez says Margarito's a warrior, but so am I. I have no doubt of my triumph, and it doesn't scare me to fight in Margarito's house. I also have my fans here who will support me. Antonio Margarito, he says, as always, I'm prepared 100%. And he says, I'm feeling very well. I hope Alvarez is too. I will give everything second by second, and I'm going to win. I don't see how I can lose after this, and we'll go for the world title. I don't know, man. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see on that. But what do you think, Sal?
I don't know if you pushed a button or what. I didn't hear anything you said. I was blacked out for like a minute.
Well, maybe it's from all those punches in the head. We got somebody on the line right now. I think it's Joel. Is that you, Joel?
Yeah, what's up, guys? Sal, what's up? What's up, Billy?
Joel, how you doing?
Doing well, my friend. Thank you very much. Billy, I won't keep you too long. I know it's getting late. I sent you an email last night. I just want to touch on that. Really just upset about that Billy Joe Saunders. I mean, the fat guy, Dan Raphael, said it well. Not only was he avoiding, just like everyone else, just like that. And by the way, Dax's comment about Dancing with the Stars was great. But it's just a shame that Billy Joe Saunders is not only avoiding Triple G, but all the guys he's defeated. I mean, this is a big opportunity to be, the main co-feature on a Canelo card at AT&T Stadium. And this is America, unfortunately. You can't, pick and choose a domestic foe or some guy that's ranked by the computer in the top 50, and expect Golden Boy and so forth to accept that. I mean, you have to fight someone legitimate. And it's just a shame that, he beat Andy Lee. And it seems like he's just going to, wait for the right opportunity to to defend that belt, and it's not going to be against anyone dangerous. And it's just, it's very upsetting.
Well, that's the path this sport has taken. Everybody wants the easiest route to a championship, and then they want to brag that they're the best and still avoid fighting anybody remotely close to being talented. And you make an excellent point about Billy Joe Saunders. Beating Andy Lee. Andy Lee is a tough guy and a guy that you should be proud of beating if you're Billy Joe Saunders, but. To try and find a dead guy that looks good on paper, which they're trying to do. They obviously want him on that card so they could set up a fight with Canelo down the road. It's a joke the way boxing's running right now, I'll tell you.
Would you have accepted, let's say, as a fan, that Golden Boy, gave him another chance? Okay, you won't fight Willie Monroe, you won't fight Stevens, you won't fight Rosado. Would you take a rematch with either Chris Eubank or Andy Lee? Would you have accepted one of those two guys on the pay-per-view or no?
Me as who?
You as a fan. As a fan, would you, if you were ordering it not off the main event, because we all know the main event's a joke, but I mean, let's just say you were really interested in the co-feature and seeing Billy Joe Saunders, would you have accepted as a fan, Lee or Eubank, him fighting a rematch?
Yeah,
against one of those two.
Yes,
you would have.
I would have. But the pay-per-view is terrible. Nobody's going to buy it. Even Canelo with his fan base, it's going to bomb on pay-per-view. Willie Monroe, him turning down Willie Monroe. No disrespect, I love the Monroe team, including Willie. But that's not exactly a horrific fight for Billy Joe Saunders. That's a guy that he should be able to. If you're a world champion, Willie Monroe, again, no disrespect to him, but his toughest fight in his life was against Triple G, and we saw how that worked out. Everybody else, you can make an argument was a marginal fighter, average at best. So if you're holding a title of any kind, I don't care how diluted the world of titles are. You got to be able to beat a guy at that point, at that level, of Willie Monroe. So I think that speaks volumes right there, Joel, of where Billy Joe Saunders' mind is at and where his team's mind is at. They don't want any chances to be taken. And, why does the boxing fan have to accept so-called tune-up fights on a big stage? Why should we accept paying $70 for a pay-per-view and get fights that we know who's gonna win? That's not what pay-per-view's all about. It's bad enough we got to accept that on network television and even the cable networks from time to time. But a pay-per-view, you can't expect the fan to just accept that. And that's my biggest hang-up with the powers that be in boxing. They fleece boxing fans from the beginning to the end. There's no other sport that fleeces its own fans, its own supporters, its own revenue stream as much as the sport of boxing. None.
It's a shame because now it seems like the undercard is going to be like what's Australia on Friday nights. It's going to be like the undercard of that pay-per-view is going to seemingly be like a LA Fight Club.
Nobody should buy it. Nobody should buy the fight. That's the bottom line. No one should buy the Canelo fight at all. It's going to be.
I'm definitely not.
Yeah, I might. They're going to get one out of me because I have to, but no one else should buy the fight. I know Sal's not buying. You're not bringing it in. You're not wasting any money on that.
You know what? I wish I could because I like Canelo, but I don't really respect this direction he's moving in, and no, I'm not going to bring it in. Forget about it.
Liam Smith, come on, no disrespect to Liam Smith, but it's going to look like a high schooler beating up a kindergartner. That's going to be the size difference in that fight. But hey, any final thoughts, Joel? We got to wrap it up here.
Yeah, I just want to say on your topic of the day, I love Triple G. Will it take him to save boxing? I think, unfortunately, it takes a lot more than just one guy. When he fights, I watch. I love the atmosphere at the Forum or at the Madison Square Garden. It's great because you don't see that much anymore. You see that in WWE or something, where the fans are cheering. You don't see that much anymore. But unfortunately, it's going to take a lot more the promoters working together. You know, I don't have to tell you, you know, a lot more than I do, but I just feel like it's going to take a lot in boxing, more than just one person to make the sport better. And, you know, and that's just how I feel about it. I just think that, you know, like you say all the time, safety first. I don't want to fight, you know, Billy Joe Saunders not fighting this guy, not fighting that guy. You know, and it's just very upsetting, you know, and I'm a sucker because when I get into combat sports, I love it. I can't leave, you know, when I get started with something, I don't stop, even if it's at a bad time. WWE, UFC, boxing, whatever. And, you know, it's just a shame that this is happening, but, you know, it's going to take a lot to, you know, really bring boxing back. It's just not going to be one guy.
No, you're right, and I didn't mean it like that, but you're definitely.
No, I know.
No, but you're right. You're right. No, you're right. One guy isn't going to do it, but that style needs to do it. That's all. But hey, Joel, enjoy the Margarito fight. I know you're going to be watching that one, and
probably, yeah. And Sal, you guys have a great weekend, and I'll talk to you guys. I'll talk to you guys next week.
All right, guys.
Take care, buddy.
Take care, guys. Bye.
Oh, there you have it. You know, you remember. You know, like I always say, wherever you go, there you are. You know. So,
yeah, I like that. Billy.
You know,
so that's a good one.
But anyway, any final thoughts, my man?
Yeah. You didn't mention anything about my New York Yankees taking 2 out of 3 games away in Boston against the Red Sox. And I was watching that game the other night when they were down 4-2. And they just surmounted a great opportunity, and they came back in later innings, and they wound up winning, I think, 9-4.
Yeah,
and they won last night too. So that was 2 out of 3 they took against the Boston Bullies.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, baseball season's over for me with the Mets.
See?
But
Mets, what Mets?
Terry Collins flipped out on him, held all the players accountable. So we got a bunch of guys in the AAA that'll come up and play.
Yeah.
But Juanma Lopez is going to be returning to the ring. A big fan favorite. He's a lot of people thought that he should definitely hang him up forever with some of his losses recently. Getting knocked out pretty savagely, but he's taken on Wilfredo Vasquez Jr., and the fight's taking place October 8th. And I'll be looking forward to seeing how both these guys do. They both had some time off. They're both coming off losses, and this fight's going to be significant because the winner will move on to better things, and I think the loser will definitely be done. But I'm going to try to watch the Margarito fight this weekend. I'm definitely going to watch the Friday night fights tonight and see how they give us any hints of their future. So I'll be looking forward to that, and I'll certainly be looking forward to chatting with you on Monday, my man.
Yeah, let's do that. Monday morning, same cat. Is it cat time?
No, we could say same bat time, same bat
good.
channel.
Same bat time.
I'm not playing the.
We just can't play the music.
I'm not playing the music, but you could do it. You could do it. You know, if you want to do it,
I get my harmonica.
You know, you could hum it, and I'll say it. So to everybody out there, make sure you enjoy the weekend. Enjoy the small fights. We have a very small schedule this weekend in the world of boxing, but there's plenty of other sports to check out as we start to get into football season. We'll be talking more and more about that. And the playoff World Series run, we'll be getting into that. And, of course, college football. Can't forget about the Dogs and the Alabama Crimson Tide, my 2 favorite teams in college. But nonetheless, everybody, make sure you tune in the same bat time, same bat channel on Monday. Until then, ciao. Keep going, man. No, we need it. Ciao, baby.